bad news around the Cincinnati Bengals once again, unfortunately. Star receiver A.J. Green has another significant foot injury. Last year it was an ankle. He suffered a sprained ankle during Bengals practice in Dayton, Ohio on Saturday, and we'll get to that in a moment, why that matters. But the best case scenario for a return is believed to be 7 to 8 weeks, which pushes you right up against week one. And let's face it, especially when you're dealing with an ankle injury and a player that involves speed and cutting ability and quickness, it's probably not an injury you want to rush back from either. So there's certainly a chance that Green's absence extends into the regular season. Terrible break for Cincinnati, which just West cannot seem to get out of its own way in the last few weeks. Offensive line issues with the injury to the first-round pick, and now A.J. Green, their most important player, is down again.
He's missed 13 games in his career, and the Bengals have won 32% of those games, compared to the 60% that they have won with him in the lineup since he entered the league. I think when you take into account his leg injuries and foot injuries of the last few years, he's turning 31 at the end of this month, and I don't know if he's the same player. I don't want to say that the decline has set in, but next-gen stats show his separation per target last year was significantly down from his previous 2 years.
We talked about this with the Superstar Club last month, that if you look at what he's done and what's happened since 2015, and even the season when he was healthy in 2017, which wasn't quite massive production that you would expect from an A.J. Green, you can make that case, and the body perhaps is starting to show signs of decline.
I'm fascinated by this because I think there could be a showdown between what the Bengals want and A.J. Green wants. He's entering the final year of his contract. And immediately you saw the national reporters Adam Schefter and then our Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport throw out 7 to 8 weeks at best. At the exact same time, Bengals.com was putting out 4 weeks. And I don't, you don't know how people are getting these information, but if I'm A.J. Green, I'd be very cautious about stepping back on the field till I'm 100% healthy, when the Bengals seem very unlikely to pay him that money. And looking even further ahead, what a trade deadline candidate he is. I mean, if he's I don't think they're going to pay him a huge salary. If they happen to start, 2-4 or something, I can absolutely see them trading A.J. Green.
I mean, it's Tyler Boyd also, who was just extended. The numbers show he's been much more productive with A.J. Green on the field, which makes some sense. I mean,
But some of those numbers were because Tyler Boyd was playing with the backup quarterback because Andy Dalton got injured. So some of that goes
There's
into
that
it too.
The story of last year's Bengals was they were a quality team until all the injuries set in, and you're already there.
And now here's the Bengals side of this story that is, only the Bengals type situation, that they were practicing at Welcome Stadium at the University of Dayton. It's tied into the NFL 100 celebration in some way, and there was a lot of talk about how terrible the turf was. Here's what Tyler Boyd had to say. Yeah, the turf was terrible. I couldn't run any routes out there. I'm falling all over the ground. It was bad. It was rocks, pebbles out there. Man, it was somewhere we shouldn't have been. I'm not trying to say any excuses, but it is what it is. And Wes is a former long-suffering Bengals fan who still is close to a lot of people who do love the Bengals. This is exactly the type of stuff where you just kind of shake your head.
I don't know enough about it to put 100% of the blame on the Bengals for this. Like you said, that's part of the 100th anniversary. And I think a team like the Bengals has to sell it regionally more than other bigger teams. That's just a fact.
Yeah, but first
of life.
things first, it has to be a safe playing surface.
There's two different things, though. There's the unsafe playing surface, which they shouldn't be on, and that's one issue. But if you watch the injury, his feet get tangled. I forget the name. Who's the Twitter doctor who always, Dr. Chow. I mean, if you watch the injury, it's two guys' feet getting tangled. That has nothing to do with the turf. He literally trips over Dre Kirkpatrick, which happened on a couple plays. Just that's bad luck. So you can blame the Bengals and the NFL. An NFL team shouldn't be playing on a bad field, but it also doesn't seem to have anything to do with this. I mean, people just ran with it without even watching it. I mean, he literally gets stepped on. I hate to be the old guy, but
players played on bad fields for 80 years, and everybody didn't get a torn ACL every time they went out there. I mean, it's just how much do we want to baby these people?
In other bad wide receiver news,
didn't expect that, but I like it.
I mean, play on a bad field, big deal. It's not a guaranteed injury. What are we talking about here?
Every team in the NFL is 0-0, but somebody still got fired. How about that? The Dolphins making a change in their coaching staff 1 week into training camp. The team announced Monday it relieved offensive. Oh yeah, we're jumping in the fish tank, and it's hot. It relieved offensive line coach Pat Flaherty of his duties.
Why did they make that noise? Sorry.
And promoted analyst, this name, Dave Dugigliemo.
Googs
to O-line coach. Rap sheet added that Flaherty struggled to implement the new system, which has been an issue since the spring. So I guess there was some Coach Flores down in Miami. It was on their radar throughout the summer after shaky OTAs and minicamps with the new coach, and they decided to make the move 1 week into training camp. But this also, Flaherty's a guy that's been around the block. I mean, he's been an offensive line coach each season since 2004, Giants, Niners, Jaguars. Very surprising. Obviously not a earth-shattering development here. It's an offensive line coach, unless you're the old man in New England. Nobody even knows who you are. But
Googs
surprising.
Googs took Scarnecchia's place when Scarnecchia stepped down for a
no.
year. Well, no, I think did he get a ring? I don't know.
I know, but
They
the Patriots
were
then immediately got
quickly
better.
Well,
when he
you
was
had to.
replaced.
What are you going to
Replaced.
do? Not bring back Scarnecchia?
Googs was always under fire when he was the Jets O-line coach, wasn't he?
Yes, that's
He
now,
was always under
yes.
fire. And
Googs.
if you're Flaherty here, you're like, hey, you expect me to make chicken salad out of chicken spit? Look at the offensive lineman he's working with.
But
Laramie Tunsil's good, and name another decent offensive lineman on that team.
They have
Well,
they have
this-
3 or 4 spots that are open.
Yeah, they specifically said that he was struggling to communicate to players in off-season meetings about the new. So, like
what does that mean
Well, I mean, I
exactly?
think it means like you're trying
Maybe
to
it's a
implement in
generational
meetings.
divide. Just
looking at
his
pictures.
headshot.
I mean, he's probably like the same age as Belichick.
Well, yeah.
Not a great resume builder though. Cannot communicate with players about new scheme.
He's like
I mean,
become
fair point.
what Mike McCoy is to offensive coordinators. Googs, unfortunately, or Flaherty, I should say, is to offensive line coaches. So anyway, good luck to you, Flaherty, and whatever comes next. In other news, more people losing their jobs.
He turned off the show if he's listening.
I said good
He's
luck.
got time now.
Other people losing their jobs. Former first-round pick Robert Kimdiche, no longer a member of the Arizona Cardinals. The team announced it released the defensive lineman on Saturday afternoon. 3 seasons, the former first-round pick struggled to stay healthy, struggled to recover from an ACL injury. In fact, Cliff Kingsbury, the new coach of the Cardinals, very blunt. He's one of those coaches, Wes, that says nothing. Doesn't give the beat writers anything. Kent Summers dying over here. And out of nowhere, Kingsbury says that Kimdiche was, quote, not in shape. Cut a day later, and he's gone.
That was the book on him coming out of the draft. That he didn't really care enough about football, and that was going to be anyone who drafted him was taking a risk in that way. It's not that he's not a smart guy. He is a smart guy. He's got varied interests, but I think most GMs want a guy whose life sort of revolves around football. Take a look at these first-round picks of the Steve Keim era.
Keimbaum.
2018, Josh Rosen. 2017, Hassan Reddick. 2016, Kimdiche. 2015, DJ Humphries. 2014, Dayon Buchanan, who was not re-signed. 2013, Jonathan Cooper, who's played for about 8 teams by now and been released by about 8 teams.
And some extracurricular activities by Steve Keim as well mixed in.
That's
so.
a disaster, and that's
And
why
still has the job. That's pretty impressive.
Kyler Murray can be his best first-round draft pick by Thanksgiving.
Well, that's why if you're a player, you see, like, you would probably have a little feeling there's a double standard here. But Kimdiche's problem was he just didn't play very well. It's like it's a sliding scale for all of these things. If he had performed, they gave him a lot of snaps when they could. And he really just
For what
wasn't
it's worth,
great.
there were, because obviously I was getting a lot of Kimdiche updates throughout his career with the Cardinals. He was playing better
last
before
year.
he blew out his knee.
But it's kind of they didn't pick up his 5th-year
option.
option, and the writing is typically on the wall when that happens, or it does not happen.
It's their 3rd coaching staff in 3 years, right? So
Yeah.
it's tough to survive.
That's what's happening in the news.
No song. We're not getting.
Oh, I thought that.
Oh, you guys want a song?
This
I
could
mean,
be it.
How
Yeah,
do we may
of
never
course.
talk about him again.
All right, I'll do a song.
I just assume this is why we started 10 minutes late.
No, actually. Kimdiche, you fell out that window. You fell down the draft board. Now you're falling right out of the league. What have you done, Keen DJ? What have you done? We should be at the start, but instead you look to be gone.
You seem emotional.
Michael Thomas and the Saints, they get it done. Thank God. The worst headlines, the worst storylines to talk about in July and August are the holdouts. There's no juice to it, but it's important to talk about because they're superstar players. So whenever the deal gets done, it's good for everybody. A 5-year, $100 million contract extension that includes $61 million in guarantees. That from Rap Sheet. Thomas had sat out the start of Saints training camp. He wanted a new deal. And instead, he jumps out of that holdout list that still includes Zeke Elliott, Melvin Gordon, Trent Williams, and others. 26 years old, now sits atop the wide receiver market, surpassing what Odell Beckham makes, $18 million per year average. Greg, Thomas, he has really exploded onto the scene, and he certainly deserves to be in that conversation of the best wide receivers in the league. Maybe he's not always brought up, but he certainly should be there.
He should, because not many people match the physicality that he has, and he has maybe one of the like most physical bodies just in terms of cornerbacks can't get around him. He can just box him out with deep speed. I think that's what was surprised a lot of people in the NFL. That's why he fell to the second round, that he could be such a big playmaker, and he is. He breaks up a lot of when they don't leave a safety deep, Thomas will kill you over the top, and he's earned it.
In the age of analytics, he's a guy whose nickname could be positive outcome. He was the most reliable pass completion, positive play in football last year. As the security blanket for Sean Payton and Drew Brees, I think he's battling with DeAndre Hopkins to decide which one is the new Larry Fitzgerald.
I just want to mention who was taken in front of him in that at wide receiver.
Call some people out.
Corey Coleman, Will Fuller,
Good pick.
Josh Dotson, Laquan Treadwell. Those were at least the first round picks, with Thomas going midway through the second round.
You remember in the 80s and early 90s, speaking of inside the NFL in that era, when they had the NFL posters and it would be, ridiculous, like Dome Patrol for the Saints, or like the Giants would be the bad fellas and they'd be dressed like gangsters. Wes, your positive outcome, can't you just picture Michael Thomas and it'd be like calculators everywhere?
Oh, tons of calculators.
Just data,
Spreadsheets
all around
laid out
him.
on your bed sheets.
Right, and he's just wearing like a sleeveless shirt and his football pants.
I feel like a listener can make that for us.
Yes,
and send it to us, please.
Hey, the artistic listeners out there, help us out. Positive outcome.
It'll never beat the Donnie ball game. Donnie
the
baseball
Hitman,
poster.
The Hitman, which hangs in my garage to this day. Anyway, and just so you know, I mean, if you're not aware, if you don't know, now you know. Michael Thomas, last season, 125, 1406, 9 TDs, and no wide receiver ever has had as many catches in his first 3 years, 321. So he entered the league as a star. He's gone nuclear now. He's a superstar. Now he's paid like
Pretty good player.
pretty good.
First time they've really had a guy like that. In all the years of Sean Payton, a guy
Marcus Colston?
that dominate. Never had the numbers like that, though. Nothing close. In terms of
Joe
just like
Horn?
I'm saying dominating the ball and being a top five. Like you always thought it was a spread the wealth type of offense. They didn't need a number one receiver.
I mean, Jimmy Graham had some years that were every bit as good as Michael Thomas's last year, right?
Scientists going at it in a big spot. Wes, you know what? You're going to get a little uncomfortable in your chair right now because I'm going to talk about something dangerous around the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck's calf injury. It's lingering. The Colts quarterback sat out Tuesday's practice session. Frank Reich, the Colts coach, said Luck will not participate in the next 2 practices and ruled him out to play in the team's first preseason game. It's a nagging injury. It's been around for 3 months, per NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. There are no more doctor appointments, scans, or surgery scheduled for Luck, but it's been labeled a calf strain and kind of a setback that he's not ready to play football yet. Where's your P scale at, Wes? 1 is completely dry, 10 underpants is soaked.
I was hoping you would ask this exact question, the P scale. It's about a 1.
I don't know, bro.
I mean,
3
compared to
months.
last year when it was a 9.9 because of his shoulder,
Moin.
this pales in comparison to last year's concern. He said he's played through worse pain. Basically, they said if he had to play tomorrow, he'd be all right to play. He's got 5 or 6 weeks before the season starts.
So it doesn't bother you at all that he's had an injury for 3 months that
No.
has not gotten better?
Doesn't bother me.
Okay.
I mean, especially when they said, like previously, that he would be ready for training camp, and we're very confident. I would put it higher because Andrew Luck sounds like he's higher. He sounded practically dejected when he said it's going backwards. He said the injury was going backwards, and he was frustrated because it's been months, and it doesn't seem like it's serious.
Come on,
but
it's like a 4. Give us a 4.
1.1.
At
All right, we're
1.1
going
though,
up.
there's still some dribbles of urine
Well, he
in your
went up
pants at that point.
0.1 just in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's on the rise. So Wes,
No concern.
Jake Brisket, I'd say just get him loose and keep him ready.
God, I hope I don't have to watch him play for a whole year.
But this is obviously something to watch. And we talked about it on the show that they cited the Kevin Durant injury as, a template in terms of be extra careful with this. Last thing we need is Andrew Luck suffering another serious injury. So it makes all the sense in the world to bring him along extra slow. But how about some positive development?
I just
that
feel
would
like
be nice.
nothing good comes from training camp at all.
Assistant coaches in new places that really are going to be big factors with their teams. And I imagine, Wes, these are teams that fancy themselves Super Bowl contenders. All right, so tell us about Skangs. He's the new offensive coordinator of the Broncos. Tell us about what do you think about what's going on there?
Well, Skangs is only the OC because John Elway got on the phone to another Stanford legend, John Lynch, and basically coaxed him in to allowing the Broncos to interview Skangs.
What a come up for this guy. He was the Wagner offensive coordinator 3 years ago. Wagner. I think he's the guy that Kyle Shanahan really loved.
Let's talk about Gary Kubiak. He goes to Minnesota, and this is a situation where offensive coordinator Kevin Stefanski, he'll still have the gig, and he'll still be calling the plays. But, Wes, Kubiak's going to be – that offense is going to look different if Gary Kubiak is in town.
Talk about a dream hire. I mean, they're implementing Gary Kubiak's system, a system which is tailor-made not only for Kirk Cousins but also for Dalvin Cook and that offensive line. You bring in a guy who marries the run and the pass as well as anybody has for the past couple of decades, Gary Kubiak.
Now, Chuck Pagano, he replaces Vic Fangio. He is the new defensive coordinator of the Bears. Trademark me. Your thoughts, please.
This instigated the article. Thinking about Chuck Pagano, we don't really know what Chuck Pagano is. He had 1 year as defensive coordinator with the Ravens where they finished 3rd in defense. And then he went to the Colts, and he never really had much talent to work with on defense.
The problem with taking a job like that is that they invariably will regress back to the mean with the turnover stuff. And they needed that defense every week. If you are in this situation, Pagano, you're going to get blamed from the earliest part of the season if it doesn't go well.
On the other hand, when you have a chance to work with Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, I mean, they're absolutely loaded.
Eddie
with talent.
Jackson, Kyle Foot, they are loaded. And yet, I think it's a tough spot to go to for Pagano.
I'm interested in your number 4 on your list.
First 4 years of Matt Ryan's career as coordinator was Mike Mularkey. Next 3 years as coordinator was Dirk Cutter. Falcons hired both of them this year, one to coordinate the passing game, the other to coordinate the running game. Even though they were a top 10 offense during Dirk Cutter's first time around, Matt Ryan's a different quarterback now. He was a much more conservative passer. His average depth of target was always kind of bottom 3rd in the league. And now he is one of the most prolific downfield bomb throwers in the NFL.
When you talk about the Dallas Cowboys offense, welcome to the last chance saloon, as you put it.
I think Freddie Kitchens, Browns coach, said this at the end of last year. When you're running offense these days, defenses are so athletic, so speedy. It's really important pre-snap to give them a moment's hesitation. And that's what Kellen Moore's supposed to do here.
I'm looking forward to a new coach in Dak Prescott's here. And I think he's laser focused on making all the things that Dak does well, especially that deep ball and throwing on the move, accentuating that. And I for whatever reason, I don't think they were getting the most out of Dak last couple of years, and I'm more excited, to watch this offense.
It's crazy to think that he was just playing a couple years ago and he's now running an NFL offense. You don't see that kind of rise very quickly.
He was his own quarterback's backup. Dak Prescott said he's one of the, quote, young genius phenoms. The things you hear about Sean McVay, you hear about Kellen Moore.
Well, check it out, NFL.com/Wesseling, to see all that analysis in one place. Ooh, those were some spicy meatballs. Wow, the NFL is on fire, and it's just the beginning of August.
Just wait until September.
Wow.
Incredible.
Your mom makes some great meatballs, doesn't she?
My mom,
She does.
Debbie makes great meatballs. In fact, I never order spaghetti and meatballs in any restaurant because it will never match up to Deb. How about that?
Well, it feels a little strong. You're hurting the Italian market industry.
Also, you're like
love
a
Italian food.
grown-up. You can pick some, at a menu. You can
It's a waste. It's a waste. Why would I get a meatball that I know will be inferior? I take my first bite. I'm spending $20, $30, $40 on it. Oh, this is good, but not as good as my favorite meatball.
That is what meatballs cost us these days, $40.
I don't know. I've never ordered one.
Feels outrageous to me.
I'm out of the industry.
Uncalled for.
Here I am giving you,
Yes,
meat sauce all the time. Some Italian meat sauce, never knowing that it can't possibly measure up to Deb Hanzus.
You don't make meatballs though in the customary sense. We're safe, and I love the stuff that's going on in West Cincinnati in the Italian food realm. All right, we'll be back next week with more hot news from around the NFL, and you get it right here from our podcast, which you also could check out 3 times a week. That's it for now. Thank you to SiriusXM. Bye-bye.